Hey, everybody. I'm here today with Richard Williams, who is a friend of mine from college. We were both musicians for dance classes, actually, was our job. We reconnected recently in the wake of his releasing Hollywood Christmas, which is a classic big band orchestra Christmas album, which he composed, arranged, conducted, and produced, and was released at the end of last year for the Christmas season. And he will be submitting for Grammy consideration in the next Grammy cycle. So, Richard, thank you for being here. Really looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
I'd love to hear a little bit about sort of your other background that I might not be aware of in music, and then kind of what happened after college, just the kind of summary of like what you've been working
Sure.
on.
Film scoring was like my focus during school. So I like won two student Emmys in Hollywood at the College TV Awards, and I did all these other student films, and I was just hustling, in addition to my two majors, music and Japanese. Um, so that was my focus. I've done so many projects, whether it's film scoring or for like animations or from artists. The band Trend kind of formed around that time.
One by one.
And I also wrote for the Kaladin album for Brandon Sanderson's epic first soundtrack. But we recorded in Budapest and Prague. But so that was like my focus.
This is let's see if I can get a good shot of this. This is the album that you have created.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
And I want to hear all about this. I would love to hear a little bit about sort of the conception to begin, and then production, post-production, release.
Back at BYU in 2014, I loved Incredibles music. I listened to like the soundtrack. I listened to it on my little mini iPod all the time. I love that music. There's all these different genres. I love all these different genres, but that's one that's really unique and I love it. And so there's a time where I was like, I just really want to write that stuff. I've never done it before, but I know brass instruments and it would just be fun to try, right? So I did, and that was like an Incredibles theme song. And I got I got the middle jazz band, jazz ensemble, to play it and record it. And it was okay, but anyways, fast forward 2018, I believe, I saw this masterclass with Chris Walden, who I didn't know at all. Apparently, when I got there, I learned who he was. He like arranges for like Michael Bublé, Josh Groban, like the biggest stars in the whole industry. And he was like showing us his scores that he had done, and he was showing us, the sound. We could listen to it with the strings or with the band or whatever. But the thing that got me there originally is he's like, "Well, you can come record with my band, like in Capitol Studios." Also, again, I didn't really know what that meant. But apparently, Capitol Studios is like the top studio in the world where anyone has recorded there. So I was like, "Sure, like okay, let's see what they can do with my song." And they had literally 15 minutes to record my song. So I went there. I was like, "Wow, this guy is like legit." And we were working with Steve Genowick, who also is like probably has the top seat in the world for that kind of stuff as a sound engineer. And then all this A-list players, like complete A-list players, they played my song. They played it twice and absolutely just knocked it out of the park. Like I was blown away. It was a 7/4 song. It's not hard. There's some soloing in it, and it just killed it. And
Like cold, like did they have the music
no,
beforehand, or
I
did you like
handed
hand it
out
out and
and
then
did
they?
it. I was blown away.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, I know you guys are good, but this is not an easy song. Like this is not an easy song.
Yeah, that's studio musicians
Yeah.
for you.
It's really cool when you get into a place in that position where you go with someone who's really good in your industry because you realize that they're just like you. They're just a normal person. But also when you're there, you really, in my opinion, you feel like I can do this too. Like you're doing this, we're doing this, he's doing it, right? And so that's how I felt. I was putting that when I was sitting there, I was like, okay, wait, Steve Jenock is like, he's a really chill, nice guy. And he was just, oh yeah, we just do this. And it's like, yeah, you just have like, I was wondering like, how do you guys mix this? He's like, no, we just like set it up, we just have like a routine. We don't really touch it much. I'm like, but you're not like crazy, like hitting the knobs. You're just, you just got a routine. It doesn't sound very hard, right? Once you're in it, once you're in there, once you have that knowledge. And so I just felt like, I was like, I need to do more of this. So when I left, I was like, I got to come back because they knocked it out of the park, but I want to do more. Like I can't just have a one-off as great as that song is. So a couple years later, that's where this Christmas album idea came. Is that I was like trying to think of, I like writing like epic stuff. I've done orchestral things with Kaladin and other things. I'm gonna keep doing it. But not everybody's interested in that epic stuff. It has very kind of a niche thing. Thomas Bergerson is one of my favorite composers, and that's kind of along the lines. But it's like Christmas is great. Chris Walden did the Christmas stuff. That's something that everyone can love. So I thought, okay, what if I went to Capitol and did a full album, but not just the band, because again, not everybody loves just jazz band, right? I want to do that. Plus I want to do the orchestra, plus singers, plus choir. My top favorite, I guess, what the style I was going for is like a Michael Bublé, Frank Sinatra, and the Carpenters. So that was how I initially got the idea.
Okay, so that was the conception of the album. You felt like this is a intersection of my interests and my skills and like a market niche that people want.
Yeah.
Would you say it was like very strategic, that
absolutely.
decision, or that was just like your passion?
Both, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, it's like
Cool.
it's like what I like. So Chris would play some of the stuff, and some stuff I'm like, meh, but some stuff I'm like, whoa, that's golden. Like I want to be in that world. I want to create more of that stuff. So I was kind of like saying, and I know this isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I wanted to be like, I think this is what I like the most, and I think a lot of people like this traditional stuff. Therefore, I'm going for that because there's a decent amount of Christmas music that's made, but a lot of it's poppy, and that's not my top favorite. So I wanted to create something which, this is not very easy music to create, both on the composition side and to have the money. So albums like this don't happen very often, So,
Right.
so I thought it would be kind of unique.
So okay, so tell me about sort of pre-production.
Okay, so
composition.
then let me see if I can pull up my notes. I was like, okay, I got this genre. So then I went through and I was like, okay, what are the most important songs, right? This is my first album, it's my debut album. And so I came up with 12 songs, actually turned into 13 later because last minute I was like, I need to add one more. But it was technically 12 songs. And I said, I want a balance between exciting things. So I made a list. I was like, I want like Chris Walden.
Checked it twice.
Yeah. Chris Walden did like Frosty the Snowman. He did like a really up-tempo thing. I was like, I want to do that one. I want to have some screaming trumpet somewhere. I want to have a sax solo. I want to have, my whole list. And then I had some chords and chord textures that I also put on that list. And so I put it together and then I thought, okay, what singers can I have? And I wanted it to be like a lot of singers. I didn't want to bank everything on one singer. Because no offense to any singer, if you don't like the singer, then you're like, oh, that's Mariah Carey's album or that's whoever's album. And even if they're a phenomenal singer, which there are very many, they're not the best on every song, right? So I was going for like, this person sounds great on a fun song. This person sounds great on a relaxing ballad. So then I conjured up a bunch of names that I had remembered about and written down and went from there.
Very cool. And this was all pre-composition. You just kind of like did a track list, had some, I want to hit these chords, I want to hit these feels, I want to hit these artists, and paired them up. And then it was like, okay, now I got to write the thing.
Yeah. And early on, the whole process, probably around 2 years, I did contact some people, and some people got back to me, some people didn't, some people didn't work out. But like, I generally composed it before I had them sing it, which is kind of risky. I might have had some of them demo, but they're usually pretty late in the game. So yeah, I composed it first, hoping that by listening to them sing other stuff that is not Christmas in other keys, that it would match, and it really did.
And were you composing into a score program like Sibelius or Finale, or were you using
Yeah, so I used DAW, I used Logic. I composed it first. I think I composed them all first. Once I was cool with that, then I think I sent it to the singers and I said, hey, can you just sing a backtrack to this? I just want to make sure that it's going to work, right, with your voice and everything. And then once that was cool, then I would open up Logic, and then I'd open up Sibelius, and I would notate all the notes into Sibelius manually.
That seems like
it's a huge amount of work. Oh my gosh. Every single step is like a massive, massive operation. Every step. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this is probably why, it's pretty unique that you did so much. I mean, what does this say on it? It says composed, arranged, conducted, and produced by Richard Williams. It's like, that's a lot of things to do.
I probably did like the work of like 10 people or more.
Yeah, which is amazing. Okay, so now you've got the sheet music. you've got your musicians, or I guess maybe you've got your singers, but what about the lining up the orchestra?
I was looking for a contractor. I found Elliot Deutsch, who ended up being the contractor, and he lives in LA. He does the Pandemonium Big Band on YouTube, where he teaches people how to write jazz band music in a very approachable way. And so you should check him out. He's super awesome. But I went down to LA around January because I was accepted into Los Angeles Film Scoring Institute, some or other thing, LAFCI. And we got to record our song at Fox Studios. It was awesome. But while I was there, I got to see him in his home, and we got to talk about the process. And he also told me at the time, because I'm learning as I'm going, he said, you also probably want to spend money on radio promotion and press promotion. And so that's when I decided to do that as well. But yeah, so I got him as the contractor. And I also, around this time, this was like early in the year, we're in 2023, so that was 2022. 2022, I was working on the copyright stuff, which is a big headache. The laws are just outdated and a big headache. But I started that about that time, and I was contacting them to get mechanical licenses and special licenses, blah, 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 blah. So when that was happening, what else was happening? I had to prepare the Pro Tools sessions files for the session. So I took all the Logic stuff and bounced all the MIDI stuff into Pro Tools, and I got the tempo maps there so that the metronome, because the metronome does change on many of them, and only for the ones for Cap Studios, because we only recorded 2/3 of the songs at Cap Studios, 1/3 or two. There's a 1/3 just band, 1/3 orchestra, and 1/3 overlap. So 2/3 at Capitol Studios, 2/3 technically at Budapest. So, and I was talking to them as well, because I think it was like a week or two after I did Capitol, I went to Budapest and recorded with them. So basically, Elliot is the one who contacted all the people at Capitol.
So was Budapest the orchestra piece and Capitol was the jazz band piece?
So like I said, there's 1/3 of all the tracks are just the jazz band. 1/3 of all the tracks are just the orchestra, and 1/3 of them use both together. So yeah,
Okay.
the jazz band, all the jazz band instruments are from Capitol, and then the strings and the woodwinds came from Budapest. But then there's also orchestral brass and orchestral percussion, and those are all MIDI.
Okay. So the and Budapest, is this overseas? This is like
Hungary,
in Budapest.
Yeah.
In Hungary. Okay. And why there? Like, why go all the way to Hungary to record
because
this?
it's cheaper and they're really good.
Really cheaper, even with the like cost of getting there and staying there and everything.
So like,
really?
So like, you're probably paying about half what you pay anywhere in the U.S. So if you multiply that by 30 people, then yeah.
Okay, so a great orchestra, and it's a bargain, and so, but the jazz band, there isn't anything like that,
and they're the most
you
expensive.
were excited about.
But actually, they didn't charge it, I think, as much as they could have for what they did. So I was very appreciative of that.
Gotcha. So okay, so you have those two pieces, and you did Capitol first, and then you went to Budapest, like you said, the next week.
I think it might have been 2 weeks later. Yeah.
2 weeks later. Okay. And you said that the orchestral percussion and
brass
yes. is MIDI.
Yeah. So
wait, but there's brass in the big band, right? In the jazz band.
So yeah, so there's trombones, and well, obviously you can hear the trumpets, but sometimes the trombone. So this is a common thing actually with film scores and stuff like this, is that a lot of times I'll mix the live stuff and the MIDI stuff because it sounds more complete, even more than just the live, as good as it is. So yeah. And for me, it was more of it was a cost thing. It would bring down my costs, and I didn't want to add so I just did strings, and then I did woodwinds in Budapest remotely later, and I didn't want, brass. I mean, it just gets more complicated. For example, if you have brass in the orchestra, then if they make a mistake, they're going to hear it through all the other microphones and the strings because they're so powerful. And so sometimes they like to separate them and have them in different sessions so that they don't do that, and you can focus on it. Because when you're recording, even just strings, there's so much to think about, and it's so easy to miss this or that and this and that. And so, especially if I'm conducting, like I'm conducting, I'm listening, I'm trying to, right? So I like to like
Right.
make a little less. So and for the orchestral brass, it wasn't really something that needed, it had to be like live. So does that make sense? Like the
Yeah,
jazz band had to
gotcha.
be live, but I could get away with that. And the same with orchestral percussion. And sometimes with orchestral percussion, like it's the same thing. Like, does it sound as good as the samples? Maybe the samples just sound as good, because like you get the most
Right.
important things live, and then the rest you don't really notice. So
And what samples did you use? Like, was there a library you used, like Contact or
yeah, so
something?
for orchestral percussion, I basically use like East West Gold, which is a really old library.
Okay.
Um, for for the brass, I can't remember. I have to pull it up, but I probably used either Cine samples or uh, I didn't use. I used not East West Gold, but Cinematic Studio Brass. That's what I've been using a lot lately.
That takes us through recording. Anything, interesting about post production and or especially I'd say the promotion would be interesting to know about.
Yeah, so I edited everything in Pro Tools, and I had to do a number of edits because again, time is short, and so you have to shift things here and there, and it's. I was amazed at how much, like, these are like small nuances, but like the same thing with the vocal singers. If the singers or the drummer or the strings are just a hair too late, it just sounds a little loose and stuff. Or if they're too early, it sounds like something's rushing. And so, you don't notice it now because it's all polished and clean, but I did all that kind of stuff, and I fixed some pitch issues because again, they are sight reading and they have like 2-3 takes, maybe 4 to get every part of the song done. So it's not going to be perfect. For the artwork, we had a friend who we got him to come to our house and take a picture of my little boy, and then I tried to do it in Photoshop, and it was just not really working like it should. Found this guy on Facebook that in Romania that I looked really good. I was like, can you just like do the lettering and just kind of touch up some stuff? And he basically finished it and just knocked it out of the park.
It's beautiful, yeah. Once again,
Yeah,
it's
thanks.
really nice. Oh, I should get my fingers out of the way of the letters. I gotta say, just your like initiative and your ability to figure all this out and then to like roll with the difficulties and stuff is astounding. I mean, like the amount of just kind of hustle that this takes just seems off the
Yeah.
charts. So I'm very impressed.
thank
I'm
you.
like trying to learn from this because I'll get intimidated. Like, oh, I don't want to have to figure out how to install this plugin or
Yeah.
whatever. That's like, oh man. Tell me about release and
Yeah, so I
promotion.
made the release date October 22nd, I believe, because I didn't want to do like December 1st or something because I knew I needed some time in case issues came up. And there were some issues where I had to contact all these DSPs, say, hey, things messed up or whatever. But yeah, I got it. And then I hired a press promoter. She contacted like 80 or so people to get blogs and stuff. And I got like 20 blogs, articles, reviews. I also got a review on the Downbeat magazine, which is like a super prestigious jazz magazine.
Oh
You
yeah.
know it.
Yeah, I read Downbeat.
There
Yeah.
you go.
It's awesome.
It was interesting because I got some mixed reviews. I would say like 90% overwhelming positive, but there were a few that were like, what is this?
What didn't people
I
like about
think
that? I'm
they thought it
curious.
was way too popish, which is interesting because to me, this is like when people say like jazz, this is like what most people think is jazz. Like you see this in a film score or something, but for the hardcore jazzers, this is like popish. I think you know what I'm saying? Does
Oh,
that make
okay.
sense?
And it's great what it is. I mean, do people get mad at Michael Bublé for not being jazz? Like it's
They
not really
probably do.
trying to be jazz.
These same people probably do.
Yeah, fair
But
enough.
yeah, but overwhelmingly, I mean, I've collected screenshots of all the comments and just I loved it, and then so yeah.
That's awesome. How has it done versus what you've expected in terms of like sales and downloads or whatever?
It hasn't financially paid off as much as I was hoping, but
Gotcha.
and I've learned a lot about that side too. Is that unfortunately I feel like this as an independent person, the cards are really stacked against you. Like you kind of have to win in the lottery in a sense.
Gotcha.
You have to have the connections. Like so. Anyways, so no, it hasn't. But I knew that going in. I knew that it could go quote nowhere. But
Right.
I still wanted to do it. I knew it's worth. It has intrinsic value in and of itself. You know, whether
Hmm.
it gets the recognition.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do. I was like, I want to go back to Capitol and I want to record with the same people that Michael Bublé records with, and I want to write an album that could quote compete with that. And because we're
Yeah.
using all the same people, same everything, and the only difference is who like produced or composed it, right? And so
Right.
that's my goal. I was like, what if that like I said when I was at Capitol, I was like, what if I could use the same resources? Could I make ones that sounds just as good or is in that league? That was the goal.
Right. That's
Yeah.
amazing. On this channel for the last while, I've been focused on like, what does it take to get a Grammy? And um, we talked about this. This is part of why I thought this interview would be really interesting. You had said, "Oh, this is a similar goal," and I'm also trying to figure this out. And so I thought, "Oh, okay. Well, I want to hear everything you've learned." And so my first kind of question would be about a question about that would be, kind of what was your initial goal or plan with this when it came to like as far as the Grammys? Like, were you like, okay, I want to submit this for Grammy consideration. I'm hoping this will get nominated, or just like, I want to see what it's like to make an album that can compete with these guys. What was your thought process going in about the Grammys
Yeah.
specifically?
Well, I obviously that's like a super long shot, but I was like, why not? What the heck? So yeah, I'm going to submit this year. Um, I heard that what I heard is that like it's like you get put on a list of like 100 other applicants or something, um, and so it's really hard to stand out if you don't already stand out, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
people are going to see the names that they recognize, and they're probably more likely going to be heard and voted on. But even still, it's still worth getting a shot at. So that's my goal. But I just was accepted into the Recording Academy this last year, which means that I can vote. So it was my first time voting and seeing what the whole process was like. And so when I looked on the ballot, it's a little the odds are a lot worse than I thought. I was like, even if you are famous, I was like, that is actually quite a feat. Like, because there are multiple famous
Right.
people on that list, and so but as a non-famous person, I don't know. But I'm still gonna go for it. If I
Okay.
ever do get nominated, I was thinking like maybe it'd be nice just to submit every year or something like that. Because again, it's a lot of it is name recognition. So if in the industry I keep popping up and I'm still posting stuff, then I might have a chance.
So now that you're a member, you'll like submit yourself, right? Like you're able to submit your own work.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And do you know when you do that? I should know this,
It's
but
like
like when are you going to
around
submit for this next
July-ish, I
cycle?
believe, somewhere around there, somewhere in the summer, late
Okay.
summer. Are
Um,
you thinking of joining the academy?
oh,
Okay.
for sure. Yeah. It's absolutely on the to-do list to join the Recording
Great.
Academy, and yeah, I'm excited to see what the kind of the voting process is like, and like what I can glean
Well,
from
here's
from
here's another thing that I have learned. I mean, they have a bunch of rules called for your consideration (FYC) rules. Like you can't pay to get votes, and which all makes sense. But during the whole time, like before voting season, during voting season, there's all these people that are always messaging people about, hey, you want to check out my track and you want to vote on it if you're interested or if you're in that industry. I think you're actually supposed to like, you're only supposed to like vote on rock categories if that's what you do in the music industry, right? You're not supposed to
right.
do it if that's not your industry or whatever.
Is that just honors system?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Have you been receiving
Oh
messages
yeah,
like that?
yeah.
Really? How many have you gotten?
Probably, I don't know, around 10 Facebook messages.
Oh,
Yeah,
on Facebook. Interesting. No, not like emails, huh?
yeah, I know. I mean, I put on my Facebook,
And did
I put
you
that I'm a recording voting member, so maybe that's how they found them.
have any of these messages been effective, more or less effective, and if so, why? I mean, did you vote for any of the people that reached out to you because you listened to their stuff and went, "Oh, this is great."
I did listen, so I just let them know that I'll take a look, and I did listen to them, but I did not vote for any of them that I listened to. So they're really
Gotcha.
stringent on
Interesting.
like, don't be it because you know them or your friends, but because because you value the actual music. And so I was like, yeah. So anyways, yeah.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Are you going to do that? Are you going to reach out to people and say, hey,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's the necessity of the industry. But, yeah.
yeah, very interesting. So I guess, yeah, your evolution and how you're thinking about the Grammy thing.
I can
Oh, go
make a
ahead.
comment. From what I've heard, a lot of people have said that it's winning a Grammy or just getting nominated, which is like the hardest part, because then when you're nominated, you're one of 5 or 10 people. That's a lot better odds. But generally speaking, getting to the nomination stage is a lot of networking, and it's like you can't pay people, but you can kind of like throw parties to let people know that you're doing it, So it's kind of like a gray area there.
Right.
But you have to do
Well,
that promotion to even get a shot, from what I hear.
it's like running for
Yeah.
office or something, right? You have to do so much self-promotion, and you have to shake a lot of hands, and you have to meet a lot of people, and people have to be aware that you're doing good work, and eventually if you do, hopefully it'll catch. But yeah, it seems like a lot of that. Do you have any advice for someone like me, or someone that's trying to sort of that would be trying to win a Grammy, of like, or even make an album, release an album, like, do this, don't do that?
An original
Any
album?
thoughts? Oh, I don't know. Something you could submit for the Grammys.
Like what genre? Do you know?
Well, for myself, or just generally? I'm sort of interested in general Grammy strategizing. And so I think that to some extent, what categories you aim for, or what genres you work on, is a strategic choice. Like with you choosing a Christmas thing, that's a little bit of a strategic choice. Like, you're like, okay, I make a lot of music that not a lot of people are necessarily interested in. I'm going to try something that a lot of people are interested in.
Logic would tell me that if you could submit to a category that has less than other ones, like, that would help more.
Do they have publicly available data on how many entrants there were in
No, they
each
don't.
category?
They're really like protective about a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Okay. I was going to ask you, I remember now my question, which was, what categories are you going to submit your album through?
well, I'm not sure. I haven't, like I said, I heard that I would be bumped up just by being Christmas into the pop category, which I wouldn't want. But then this last year, I saw a bunch of people that were in the normal jazz category. So I probably would do jazz, large jazz ensemble, I think, for the Christmas album, I think. Because I think the large jazz.
You would only submit to one?
So
Can you not? You can submit
yes,
multiple, right? Because
I think you could submit 5
yeah.
things for free, and then if you want to submit more, you have to pay more, $40 or something. I don't know. You have to pay something every other submission. And you can also, apparently, I can submit for people who are not even members, apparently.
Right.
Which is.
I think I did know that. So when you say 5 things, you could submit your album 5 times for 5 different categories.
No, I don't think so. I think I can submit 5 different songs for 5 different categories. And generally, if you have like one category, you don't want to submit like 2 songs in that category, because that halves the prospects of your own self, right? But no, I don't think
Okay.
you could.
But I guess, are most of the categories like one song?
Some are one
they
song and
like
some are an album. So I think the large jazz ensemble is an album category, which I wanted to. Well, again, it's who you know, but I wanted to be like, this is a whole compilation of stuff, not just like one song on the album. And that's another thing. I probably, so I'll submit that, like, large. I think that's what I'm going to do so far is the large jazz ensemble. It's the whole album. But then there's like best arranging, so I can submit one of my tracks. But I can only submit one of my tracks, so I'll have to decide. I don't know which one I'm going to do. But so does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But presumably you'll use all 5 to pull, like, if there's things that it fits,
Yeah, I don't,
like for best arranging, or if there's one that's like best.
I don't think there. I can. Well,
No.
I could. Well, I don't think there are 5 categories from this album that I could do. I think there's the best large for the whole album. There's like arranging, then there's like composing, but that's not really. So I might do. I don't know. So here's the other thing: is that, like, I could fill up my 5 with other stuff, but when you're pitching to people, it makes sense to me to be like short, be like, please just listen to this one song. Don't listen to this song and then all my 3 other songs that I do on the side, right? Like for branding,
Okay.
when you're petitioning to people, it's easier to be like, hey, check out this 1 or 2 songs. And
Got
that
it.
way they'll be like, I remembered that thing. I remember that one guy. He was that one guy in that one song, instead of like he had like 3 other, and what category was he in, right? Because it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff.
Got it. Okay, got it. Well, this is interesting because this is maybe making me think that if I'm gonna if I'm gonna create something, like my first Grammy submission, I have been thinking would be like an album, but it occurs to me, well, maybe you focus on just 1 or 2 songs, and they don't have to be part of an album. They can be
Yeah.
singles or whatever, and you submit those, and that's a lot less sort of
Yes.
work,
Yes. Absolutely.
right? Like just by
Absolutely.
quantity, but sort of an equally high chance of it succeeding, because people aren't saying, "Oh, well, this isn't part of an album." Well, then I
No,
don't know,
absolutely. Yeah.
right?
I think it's smarter to go for
Interesting.
the single route, and then you can hit all your focus on just when you're pitching to people, like, this is me, this is my one track, this is um my one
Interesting.
category or whatever. Yeah.
One shot.
Way less work.
That's
Way
cool.
less
Okay,
work.
that's really useful. That's very, very useful and interesting. Any other advice or insight that you have now from the position that you're in as a soon to be submitted, for Grammy consideration, composer, arranger, conductor, producer, and, current member of the Recording Academy?
I guess I would say that just the music industry is you have to do it because you love it, not because it like makes you $1 million.
Right,
So
right.
if you can do it, if you could do that for whatever reason, maybe, if you need a side job and do it, then that's great. I think one thing that helped throughout the whole process is I just had the big goal, and then I have like medium goals of timelines, then I had the smaller goals and then smaller goals, right? So like per month, I was like, this is where I need to be, per week is where I need to be, per day almost. And so just keeping to that helped a lot, because there's so, as you can see, there's so much to be done. And so that helped me know if I was on track or not.
Well, thank you for taking the time to
Yeah,
talk to
yeah.
me. Like I say, I can't really promise much exposure, but like it's when I started this channel, when I started this kind of thesis about like the Grammys, was like, well, I don't know anything about this. So, and that's kind of the fun. And it was cool to connect with you and to realize that, wow, you're like doing it. You're out there doing it. And like you say, this may not be the one where you win a Grammy, but like the experience that you have is so valuable to you and your projects, so marketable. And like, I just feel like you're on track. You're like early stages of this, but this is I feel like you're gonna get there. I feel like you're going there. So it's fun to be able to connect with you at this point. Maybe this video, maybe 10 years from now, when you're like a multi Grammy arranger, people will be like, oh, this will blow up.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember
Remember when?
But yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much for taking
Yeah.
the time, and this has been super instructive
Yeah,
and
thanks
helpful.
for doing this.
And let's definitely keep in touch. And I'm very interested in continuing to follow your journey with all this. Thanks again, and let's talk soon.
Thanks, Jordan.
One more, same thing.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Well, it doesn't show signs of stopping, and I brought some corn for popping. The lights are turned way down low. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. When we finally kiss goodnight, how I'll hate going out in that storm. But if you'll really hold me tight, all the way home I'll be warm. Well, the fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbying. But as long as you love me so, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
That's actually all I need, because I just find that a lot of times you kind of like not you, but like when I'm doing something like this, I'll taper off at the end or something, and I'm like, oh, I can't use this. Like that doesn't feel
Yeah.
like an ending. I need like a hard cut.